Hello, and welcome to the What Inspires You podcast. My name is Paul.
And I'm Brandon. Join us as we rediscover wonder through inspiring conversation.
Yeah, welcome to some episode at some point in time.
Yeah.
For some podcast.
Welcome to the next episode
of What Inspires You.
That's right. We talked about inspirational things today.
Yeah.
I hope if you've made it this far, that's because you found a lot of inspiration. And
or it's just morbid curiosity.
Or you're just those people we pass on the street and beg to watch our podcast. We accept you too. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, our paid audience.
Yeah, our paid audience.
And they provide the laugh tracks for us. I know, right?
Pay you $1 to like our video.
Hey, I'm getting desperate. It might come to that, to be honest. Turn my family into a bot farm.
That's right. That's right. All of our family and friends.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's hard.
It's okay.
Although, thank you to my dad, who now helps us out by commenting.
Oh, he does?
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it was just you who commented. You got your dad to comment too?
Yeah. My mom's super good about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've kind of slacked off. Sometimes I would comment, but I'm not. Honestly, I only watch our videos every once in a while. Mostly when I'm trying to show them to my wife, and I'm like, "Look, honey, look what we talked about."
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a thing.
Are you proud of me?
I did a thing today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is interesting. I find myself often just being like, because in conversations, I'll talk to people and be like, bring up podcasts for other podcasts I've listened to, and be like, oh yeah, I was listening to whatever, and this person said this interesting thing. But then it's kind of funny in conversations when I start referencing my own podcast, and I was like, oh, in my podcast I was talking about this, or like, oh, that's funny, like I was just talking about this the other day with Brandon during our podcast, It's like, it's kind of weird bringing in your own. It
comes up as like a weird conversation piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're like, it's like, is it narcissistic to bring up your own podcast all the time? I don't know, but it's like, the thing I was talking about is relevant. So
I remember that when I was given the Lifetime Achievement Award by the president.
Exactly.
What did that have to do with mustard spread over sandwiches? Nothing. It just reminded me of that, so I thought I'd bring it up just in case you wanted to know.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
People know me.
My library smells like leather-bound books and rich mahogany. Anyway, Brandon.
Yeah, man. Here we are. What inspires us today?
Warm clothing because it's freezing out?
Yeah, warm clothing is very inspiring. Fireplaces are very inspiring right now. Is Christmas music inspiring yet?
I unfortunately turned on our work van today, and Christmas music was playing. Yes.
I say Christmas music is inspiring all year round. I think it's inspiring at all times. In fact, I wasn't even
gouge out your ears.
I wasn't even going to talk about that today, but maybe I need to talk about Christmas and Christmas music just because we brought it up right now.
I feel like this is the one thing that this is like might get me to shut this down. I don't know.
You're going to get my whole segment edited.
Yeah.
Brandon couldn't talk today.
It's the most inspiring thing.
Brandon didn't have anything inspiring today.
Christmas music is nothing.
That's fine. I'll sneak it in later.
Yeah. I'll
in like a month, I'll bring it back.
A month? That seems appropriate.
A month from now.
Yeah, as long as it's after Thanksgiving.
Okay, all right, after Thanksgiving.
That's the only thing I ask.
Okay.
I'm jaded because of working in retail.
Jaded. Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's not, I guess nobody ever listens to Christmas music when you're doing massage, It's not like.
They could.
It's not like relaxing Christmas music. Even during Christmas season, people still just listen to the same relaxing music. But I feel like there should be like all those 1 hour replay of the relaxing ambiance sounds. Like, can we make a Christmas version of that?
Probably.
There's got to be a Christmas version of that out
Probably.
there. Yeah.
That's all. Everything relaxing now is just lo-fi. So that's.
There's just going to be like every 5 minutes a little background that's like, hoo, hoo, hoo. It's like a little Santa
that's
thing.
Your Christmas, yeah.
Some little jingles that go on.
Yeah, maybe a bell.
Little reindeer grunts. I
don't know if that's relaxing to me.
And then playing some kind of slow, kind of jazzy elevator music that just has some little notes of Christmas in there.
Okay,
that's gonna be it.
You're set in the ambiance. I can get on board now.
Yeah.
I'd listen to that Christmas music.
Me too. I'd listen to it all year round.
All right. Don't push it. Don't push it.
Okay. All right. We're not talking about Christmas music today, though. What do we... All right. What do we... I feel like
I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm going first. I'm
yeah.
going first. Well, okay, I wasn't going to talk about Christmas music, but it was enjoyable to talk about for a little while. What I really want to talk about, actually, totally different, was the Book of Psalms. Book of Psalms.
And a classic.
It's a classic, man. You know, I mean, I feel like there's just so many, not only just iconic things in the Book of Psalms, but it almost just feels like a vast ocean that's like, who even knows all the Book of Psalms? There's
It's a
so
very
much
poetic way to put that.
so much going on there. Yeah, there's just waves of verses crashing against your heart. Some breaking you, some lifting you up in the swell.
Isn't that Psalm 37, 37?
I don't
I'm just
know.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
It's not.
It's in the second book of Psalms. Brandon's book of Psalms. No, well, actually, that was something I wanted to talk about today. Did you know? Fun facts about the Book of Psalms. That there are 5 separate books within the Book of Psalms. Did you know that?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know 5 exactly, but I knew. Yeah, it was.
I knew that there were kind of like weird book divisions, but I was like, I don't know, whatever that's about. Like, I didn't really look into that. But recently, because I've been doing Zach's Psalm
nice.
Bible study class on Wednesday nights for the past like month or whatever, and my wife's been coming too. So we've been going to that, which I gotta say, taking that class, every class is like a book out of the Book of Psalms, and it's crazy. Like I realized now that I didn't even know what the Psalms were about. It was like, oh my gosh, it's so much deeper than I thought it was.
That's cool.
But it's interesting. Like, I used to just think that the whole Book of Psalms was all written by King David, but it's not. It's only like the first half. It's the first 2 books, like up to chapter, I think 72.
Yeah.
And there's a couple kind of stray chapters in the other books where
Some, like,
there's
filler.
like a couple random David. Well, I shouldn't say random. I think that they were put in there on purpose. I think people like specifically placed them in some spots that kind of went with some themes, which is interesting. But it's pretty wild. And one of the crazy things I think in Psalms is that there's so much more pointing towards Jesus than I originally thought there was. Like, there's a few famous Psalms, like Psalm 23, that's like the Good Shepherd, and I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but I'll fear no evil. And everybody kind of knows some of those. That one. And then there's some other famous Psalms, like Psalm chapter 1 is really famous. That's kind of the 2 paths of the righteous people meditate on the word of God and they're blessed. And then the wicked people, like, don't be like the wicked people who don't know the word of God, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, but then there's all these other chapters that kind of sneak in there. Like, if you get to chapter 2, it's literally a totally prophetic chapter just talking about how Jesus is coming. And it's like the anointed one and the Son of God is going to come and like restore the nations and all these things. And it's totally like, what? I feel like how did I just never get past chapter 1? It was like, it was right there all this time. Like, I know I've read it. Somehow I just never really sat and thought about it,
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
And there's these cool themes in Psalms where the chiasms will occur. I think I've talked about chiasms on this podcast before.
Yeah, last episode.
Oh yeah, well
Symmetry.
that's right. We talked about it then, and maybe we've talked about it in the past as well. But the chiasms will start to occur, and so chiasms of my yawning.
I am yawning with my chiasms.
Then the chiasms will kind of point to the center structure, and there'll be some central chapter that it refers to. So like one of the early chiasms has its centerpiece in chapter 8. And chapter 8 is like a very cosmic creation sort of poem that goes on. And it's talking about the heavens and the sky and how great God is that he made all these different things. And like God's the one who made the stars and all this stuff. And you kind of get these cool centerpieces in Psalms that point to this like creation story, where it's like, oh, woe is me, my enemies have surrounded me. If only I knew that the Lord cared for me. And then the next one would be like, praise you, Lord, you saved me from the bad people from the last chapter. And it was like, oh, woe is the way of the wicked. Like, righteous are those who read the word of God, and like, yes, I shall always love the word of God. And there's kind of these weird dips and ups and downs.
Yeah, but I'm a loathsome sinner. And
I'm a loathsome sinner.
my enemies surround me on all
Yes.
sides. And
Yeah.
who will rescue me? Yeah.
And there'll be all of these chapters like that, and they'll kind of parallel each other. And then right in the middle, it'll come together, and it'll be like, God made the world, praise God. And that'll be like right in the middle of everything.
And it seems out of place, kind of, if you're just reading.
If you're
without-
just reading it arbitrarily,
Yeah.
you look at it and you're like, that's weird. But if you step back with a big picture and you kind of outline the chapters, you're like, oh, those chapters all kind of go together like that. That was weird. No, I didn't realize that. And then it makes it so much more interesting reading the chapters.
It's part of a bigger pattern.
It's a bigger pattern, yeah.
Yeah. I almost see it like frequency waves, where it's like there's certain frequencies that run throughout the universe, and so it's like the frequencies that will inform, matter itself to some extent, or the quantum, fluctuations that these patterns that make arise to our reality. It's like they run in story as well. And there's reasons why like certain stories resonate or are kept over thousands of years and others are discarded,
Yeah.
And so there has to be like some underlying thing there. But yeah, the pattern of a story is,
Yeah.
it's like the hero's journey is a pattern of a story, right? That like
Yeah.
resonates. And it's like, you have the motions of up and down and, underworld and back up and taking what's down below and bringing it back. And like those patterns are very significant. Huh. That's cool, dude.
Yeah, it makes me appreciate editing, Like I think a lot of times you hear the word editing and you think it's like you've redacted things, you've like cut something out. Like we're going to edit this podcast, we'll cut things out of it, It's like you want the raw, unedited version because that's like that's the truth, But at the same time, editing is also how you make things make sense. It's like sometimes you write things as a writer and it's like, yeah, that was a bunch of garbage. Like there was only 10% of that really was good.
Yeah.
And then you've got to edit it to make it cohesive. So it's actually like beautiful and enjoyable to read, And when I think of poetry, I feel like poetry is heavily edited because it's really hard to just like write off like the first draft is just like perfect poetry where it all rhymes and works together and makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I think that would be hard to do. It would be a lot easier to be like, there's some themes I want. I'm going to write this down. No, wait, that doesn't work. And you got to edit and you got to change it. And you got, okay, wait,
Yeah.
now here's what I wanted to get.
Which is counterintuitive, but because poetry seems like the most just like express whatever and it's
Yeah.
free flowing and it's whatever. And I mean, it can be in some sense, but it's usually that poetry is never remembered because it's just like
because poems
incoherent.
is a message with a pattern, and so in order to try to like communicate, because there's like lines that have to parallel each other or words that rhyme with each other, or like one of the ones you find in the Hebrew Bible is where they every first word of each sentence starts with the letter of the alphabet. So it's like if you said, always eat apples before every meal, come to breakfast.
Yeah,
it's
consume
like,
as many as you can.
yeah, it's like it has to be like A, B, C, but it's in the, Hebrew alphabet. And so then you'll have these, and there's,
Which is easier.
yeah,
There's
which
less
is,
letters. I'm just kidding.
well, there's
But yeah.
22, I think, 22 characters, and there's a few. I think there's at least one or maybe two chapters in Psalms, I can't remember what they are, that are literally 22 verses long because there's 22 sentences and each sentence is like a different letter of the alphabet in the first word. So it's just cool poetry like that. That was really well thought out. It's very clever. But you kind of miss it in the English, you don't get that kind of stuff from English reading of it.
Yeah.
And so it's fun when you study it and you get to know some of that deeper editing.
It would
And
be kind of funny too. It's like, I think even if someone did that like in a book or whatever and started a sentence with each like first letter, you might not even notice even if it was in English.
yeah, that's true.
like how many like clever things are people doing in their writing that you just like skip over and you're like,
Yeah.
eh. But then you like watch an interview with the, I see this a lot in movies actually where you hear from the director, and he's like, "Oh, this was an intentional thing that we like wove throughout the story." You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
now I see it." You know, like
oh, I didn't even know that I didn't even know about that thing.
it was like so subtle, but it was like significant for them, and they like shaped elements of the movie around that one thing.
Yeah.
And it was like just totally took it for granted.
Yeah, I know. It's like that was so subtle. We didn't notice any of that.
Yeah.
We totally missed it, you know?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the car was red because he was angry in this scene or whatever. And you're
Yeah,
like,
right.
oh, okay.
You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
I wasn't getting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like in kids' books, kids' books are usually very poetic, and there's a lot of rhyming and following the alphabet and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting because we make that stuff a very kid thing, and we make it super obvious in kids' books. It's like the big capital letter A. It's painted with a color. It's like apples, alligators, with all the A things. And you make it, and there's a whole big page with it, and you like understand it. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting how maybe in other cultures and in Hebrew poetry, you have that, but it was like this was the adult reading material was this kind of stuff, and it was maybe more subtle and nuanced, and maybe it wasn't like as big and in your face. It's maybe people like already kind of knew to look for that, so they didn't need to emphasize it as much.
That's true.
But it's just interesting when you get into the Psalms how many cool subtle things are there that when you start studying it, they really make
How
a
many
difference.
chapters in the Psalms?
150.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
biggest book in the Bible.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
So-
Like, I wouldn't blame anyone for not remembering.
Oh
some
yeah,
stuff
it's
from the
that's
Psalms.
why I was like, it's an ocean. It's just like you get lost.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know, the book of Jude. Yeah, it's like what or Philemon. It's the Philemon.
Philemon, yeah.
Philemon. There we go. It's like one page in my Bible.
Yeah, or like James, First and Second James, or whatever.
Yeah,
Pretty short.
Or first, no, there's only
Or-
Isn't there just one James or
No.
John? You're thinking. There's like John.
Oh, yeah.
Second and third John is super short.
Super,
Second and
yeah,
third
that's what I'm
John
thinking
is
of,
what
yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
like
know.
3 chapters or something, or
Yeah,
whatever.
there's just tiny, tiny books that we'll spend tons of time reading or looking at, or this little New Testament book that's super, everybody, they do a
Yeah.
sermon series in it or whatever. And then,
Yeah, well, it is weird. Like, I wonder, like, just how many pages that is. Like, it's probably like equivalent to like at least 25% of the New Testament, probably, like
I
lengthwise.
don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look. I don't know how many pages that is.
Yeah, be curious.
Because, there are some Psalms that are really short.
That's true.
Like, there's the really long one, 119, that's like 170 verses or something. It's a really long chapter, and it's all about the Word of God. And then there's other ones that are just like a few sentences. I mean, they're just tiny
Interesting.
Psalms. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how big the book is.
Do you think there's any
page-wise.
significance to kind of how it seems to fall between, like the Book of Psalms seems to fall between like the beginning and the end of the Old Testament? Like it seems like there's a pretty clear cutoff of like, okay, we're gonna move, Genesis, prophets, Kings, Exodus, all that kind of stuff. Like Israel's established history is here, and then it's like Psalms, and it seems like mostly prophets after that. Like
Well, that's the Christian, putting together. That's the Christian like composition of the Old Testament. But if you look at the Tanakh, which is like the Hebrew, categorizing of the Old Testament books, they put it into 3 different sections, which was the T for Torah at the beginning, right? The 5 books of Moses. The in the middle, which I'm blanking actually at what it was. It was like Navaim, or I know I'm saying it wrong, but something with an in, and that was the prophets. And then at the end, there was I think it's the Ketuvim. I can't remember, something with a K, and that just meant other writings. And that was like, I think that was like,
is
the
that
book
like
of-
in order of significance or importance?
I don't know if it was in order. Maybe it was in order of significance. I'm not sure. But it was like, I think that the way that it was ordered was kind of the law, the prophets, and then sort of random other stuff that they didn't quite fit in those other categories. So like the Psalms, I think Song of Solomon, I think Ecclesiastes, maybe the book of Ruth, Esther, just kind of like other random stuff. They were like, I don't know, it's just the other writings. That's what it is. And a lot of times, because Psalms is the biggest book out of that, you'll actually see reference where in the Bible they'll just say, you know, you follow, you know, Moses, the prophets, and David, or like haven't you read the law, the prophets, and the Psalms, or David? You know, they'll kind of say those three things, but sometimes they'll kind of say the law or Moses as reference to the Torah, and then they'll say David or the Psalms as reference to the other writings, because that was
like
the
a
biggest
shorthand,
book of it. So it was kind of a shorthand. So like, you know, anytime in the New Testament when Jesus is like, haven't you read Moses? It's like, that's saying, haven't you read the Torah? Or if they say the law says, then that's saying, haven't you read the Torah? Or if they're like, well, I read David, then it's like saying, I read the Psalms, you know, kind of thing.
Do people ever say like, have you read Elijah?
I don't
it's
know.
like the prophets.
Yeah, I think they would just say the prophets. And I think the prophets were not only, because we categorize them as 3 major prophets and 12 minor prophets. And I think they put all of those together under prophets. And I think that they would also included a lot of the historical books, because there's also books like First and Second Kings, First and Second Samuel, Chronicles. I think even the book of like Joshua and Judges, I'm pretty sure
Judges,
all
probably.
of those actually went under like prophets, which is interesting. Whereas when Christians came and categorized it, I'm pretty sure they came along and were like the Torah at the beginning, and then we're kind of like the history in relatively chronological order, history, and then it was like the other writings of like Job and
Esther
Psalms
and
and Esther. And I think even Esther might have still been kind of in the history category. And then after, you get kind of this weird little sort of, you know, I think we called it like books of wisdom, actually, which was like Job, Psalms, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs. I think we called those like the books of wisdom, maybe. And then you get the prophets at the very end. That was kind of how like Christians later on came back and sort of reorganized it. And I don't know why they did it that way.
Yeah, because that was something that kind of always confused me, was like some of it's not even chronological, you know, as far as like, oh, this prophet was here, but he was like during this time in, you know, wherever, you know, in the history, you know, side of things. And so it was like, that always confused me with the chronological order of things, or, you know, prophets talking about prophecies. And I'm like, wait, didn't that already happen? Or, you know, like certain cities getting sacked or whatever. And so,
I know, because you get like the book of Esther and Nehemiah and Ezra, and then like the book, and those are all kind of happening during exile, so kind of somewhat simultaneous, you know, around the same time period. And then it's like the book of Job, which is considered one of the earliest writings, like this is way early on in history. Then you get David, and then you go back to something later on, like the book of Daniel, which is like way at, or Ezekiel. And it's like, well, those are like way at the end, you know? So yeah, you jump chronologically, you jump like all over the place, back and forth.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just hard to keep track of, but yeah.
I think it goes in chronological order up until the book of Chronicles.
Yeah.
I think it's
pretty nice coincidence.
I think it's chronological till Chronicles. And then after that, I feel like it's kind of a jumble.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. You're going to have to do your own reorganization, Brandon style.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find Bibles that are in the Old Testament written chronologically, or like they've edited it around so that it's chronological.
That'd be kind of interesting.
And I think they even break up certain books too. Like, oh, the first half of this book was here, but then we're going to kind of come back to the second half later, or what. Like, I think they'll break it apart a little bit.
That'd be kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I did that one time. I did a read through the Bible in a year Bible study, and it was in chronological order, which is cool to read.
Well, it's like kind of funny because people don't really. I think there's you just take for granted that information is information. You know, it's like, well, if it's all there, it's fine. But even the way information is presented can like affect how you process it or how you see it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it's the old journalism problem, right? Where it's like, why don't we have objective journalists anymore that just go out and like capture what's there, you know? But it's like, even the idea of just showing, like, you only have so much film or so much time or whatever. So it's like, even the idea of what you include in your even what you capture, I guess, to some extent, is going to be like biased or like shape the narrative or the perspective of people watching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If it was
Yeah.
objective, it would just have to be like
broad
like
data.
a street cam.
Yeah.
Just running. It's like you can just watch the whole 24 hours of this,
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have somebody come on and give commentary because there's no way you could do that in a subjective way or a objective way.
Yeah, without shaping someone's opinion of it.
I know. And even if somebody's holding the camera, it's like, well, now it's just what they choose to point it at,
Yeah.
So it's like,
Do you show the pizzeria, like serving hot pizza, or do you show like the homeless people, 2 feet down the sidewalk, or whatever?
Right.
It's like those are two completely different stories.
Yeah.
Or like frames of reference. So
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, the Psalms are inspiring. I think it's worth taking another look at them. I think they have so much more depth than maybe we give it credit. And there's just, it's highs and lows all throughout, it's lament and then praise, lament and then praise. It's
kind of mirrors real life.
I know. It's raw, it's authentic, I mean, you get these Psalms from David that are just like, dude, this guy is in anguish, just depressed. I mean, you
put him out of his misery.
You read some, I mean, he literally praised some stuff like that, he's kind of doing the Job thing, like, woe is me, I'm in horrible sorrow, like it'd be better if I wasn't here.
Do you think he was schizophrenic?
Maybe.
I'm just kidding. It's probably sacrilegious to say, but
maybe King Saul was, just, after he was tormented, he might have been a little schizophrenic.
Yeah. All these things that now we just have clinical terms for that, like in the back in the day, we'd be like, no, he was just possessed by a demon.
Yeah.
A demon of schizophrenia. Yeah. And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like we classify all this stuff now as, conditions, but it's like maybe that's just like maybe these things aren't foreign to the human condition, like super high highs and low lows. It's just like we just see them as a problem now or something. And so it's like because of that, we diagnose it as a, some sort of condition, but maybe that's more inherent to, how we just operate as humans. Who knows?
Yeah.
And so
I think the other interesting thing with the Book of Psalms is that it's deeply personal. And so it's almost like reading someone's diary. There's a lot of I statements, like I am in the depths of sorrow and things like that. And you read other books where it's, Genesis, it's kind of this like ambiguous narrator telling you the story of these people, or Leviticus, where it's just all these crazy rules and things. And you don't always read a book through kind of this like first person perspective. You don't always get that in the Bible. And so I think it's interesting to read that kind of story that's like it's like somebody just sort of like writing down their life, venting, drama, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just letting you read it. It's like, it's like a journal entry.
Put this out into the world and see what see what comes back.
So you never know. If you're writing a journal, it might become the Bible someday.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I don't think so anymore.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I think that was only for back King David.
Yeah.
And the sons of Korah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to see anything I've written, that's for sure. Today I couldn't finish my story.
Today I had to sleep in a little bit longer, and that's why my life is hard.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I was a little tired.
I forgot what my credit card number was.
Yeah. Totally.
There you go, the Psalms. Read them.
Okay.
Enjoy them.
Nice.
Sing some poetry.
Yeah. Poetry's great, dude.
There you go.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I think I've been switching more and more of my writing to poetry just because, again, yeah, like you were saying, those patterns. And then I think it has a way of conveying more information. It's just, there's like things you can't, like life is so rich that using just objective language, like you need like a ton of technical language to convey the same idea as one like symbol or one metaphor. And so like I'm even noticing that as for my job where I have to write like session notes for like, so each time I like work with a kid, right, I have to kind of write up a summary of what happened, and it's like one of the big criteria is that you can't use subjective language. And it's like you can't just be like the client was sad or whatever, or so even like not using stuff like that it's like trying to write out an encounter is like super difficult. You're like, the client was scrunched up his face and had one tear out of his right eye and, you know, frowned and then turned around and sat down on the ground and then, you know, hunched over a little bit. And it's like, you know, it's like when you have to like, but if you just said like the client was sad, like you would probably just assume all those things, you know, or like bent, like hunched over posture, or, you know, some sort of maybe a tear or something like that. You would just have all these like images come to mind, just by saying, or he was very sad or something, or he was distraught. You know, it's like these words are just so packed with meaning that, but they are more subjective, and so it's just interesting. Like, you know, I've been talking with another friend about that, of like, you know, he's like, well, as like technology kind of gets more encompassing, like we'll be able to just make everything explicit instead of implicit, because we were talking about like symbology and like the idea of, you know, line on a cross meaning something, you know, symbolic. But I was like, I don't know, man, because like I think if so even if you do make everything explicit, it's like there's an infinite amount of detail you can capture, and then at that point, like you're limited by your time, your attention. It's like, what are you going to do? Like sit and, you know, read something that's like spelled out to the T for like 5 hours just to like grasp something fully? It's like, no, you're still going to like resort to the symbol or like the shortcut, you know, to get the meaning. But yeah, anyway, that's my symbolism rant. Got to get one in. That's my new AI symbolism. My inspiration is science fiction.
Ooh.
Yeah. I've been
Science fiction where AI
I forgot to
takes
ask a
over the world.
question. Dang it.
Oh, I forgot to ask a question too. I didn't think about that.
Should we re-record?
No. Let me think. Here, all you got to do is be like, imagine if you were lost on a planet all alone
There you go.
and somebody else was writing the story of your life.
What kind of story would it be?
Suddenly, William Shatner comes out of nowhere and punches the really slow-moving lizard monster.
That's where my mind goes with science fiction for sure. Good old Star Trek. Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, that's right.
Although I never actually watched the original Star Trek, so it wasn't Scotty. It was Beam Me Up.
I don't remember.
Usually, maybe Worf. I don't know. But anyway, science fiction is inspiring to me because people who like write science fiction are kind of like writing the future in a lot of ways. I've loved that concept of like people, you know, I mean, Star Trek's the perfect example. You see everyone on their like little personalized tablets, you know, booping away at like a plastic screen. And like, what do we have now? A bunch of people on the subway just sitting booping away at their plastic screens, you know? So like pretty darn close. You know, or obviously, you know, it's every science fiction thing ever has been like, computer, do this for me. And now it's like, Alexa, schedule my appointment for Monday.
Right, totally.
You know, or, you know, that's the first thing only like these AI nerds are trying to do is like, you know, can I set up Jarvis, you know, like a Iron Man Jarvis system with my AI assistant to like run my software or do whatever.
And then can I implant Jarvis into a human body? And then can I fall in love with Jarvis?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far yet, but yeah.
Isn't that what happened? Jarvis became the
well, he became like ultra, well,
he became whatever the one hero dude who had like the Infinity Stone in his forehead.
Oh, did he?
And then the Wanda chick fell in love with him, and then he died, and then she became evil.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can convince me that that's a thing.
I can't remember what his name was though.
A Vision.
Vision. Oh yeah. That's right, Vision, because he had the Vision Stone or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the Vision. Silmaril. I'm just kidding.
Pretty much.
Infinity Stone. Yeah, Tolkien's been on my mind a lot too. But yeah, so it's the idea of, yeah, you get to like just put things in you get to think things up that you think will be in the future, and if it's popular enough, like someone's gonna go about trying to achieve that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is kind of strange. I mean, that just makes me think of Jules Vernon or Jules Verne with, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like nobody had even invented a submarine at that point.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. And he's like,
No, they must have.
I don't think so.
I know they were using them during like the Civil War.
They
Like,
were?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
not good ones.
Wow.
But yeah, you should look it up. They had like a it was like a wooden submarine
What?
that was powered by like one guy with pedals.
What?
And had like a little drill on the front to go like drill like through holes of ships, I think.
What?
Yeah.
Sounds like a death trap.
Yeah. Or yeah, it was like, yeah, I think that's what it was. Or like, I don't know, maybe it had explosives on the front or something, or I don't know. But yeah, they had like little submarines back in the day.
Wow.
And so, but when did he write it?
I don't know.
I felt like it was like the late 1800s, maybe.
I thought so too, yeah.
But
I'll
yeah.
have to look it up.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure, yeah, to the extent that he had it, like it was very much.
And his other book, Journey to the Center of the Earth, I mean, we all know that's real now.
What?
It was in the Kong versus
Oh, gosh.
Godzilla movie.
The Hollow Earth.
so you know that's legit now.
It's been canonized.
It's been canonized.
Yeah.
That's where King Kong lives. So
Duh.
yeah, duh.
That's funny.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to like see a whole list of like technologies that came out, after their like counterparts in books. I know there's been like, I think the internet's been predicted. Artificial intelligence has obviously been predicted way before any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the Greeks had, for the Greeks, I think probably the Greeks, I'm just going to say it is.
All right.
They had the idea of, like the automaton, which is like the
robot man.
yeah, like Clockwork Man kind of stuff, So it's like, robotics have kind of been thought up way many years ago. Yeah, so there's all these like kind of ideals that are put forth, and then like humanity has to play catch up to these ideas in some sense. And so my tangent thought with this is well, first going back to the Utopia episode, like that's as I'm writing more Utopia stuff, that's just the genre I'm going to call it, just so you know. So when I refer to Utopia, that's going to just be a genre.
Utopia science fiction.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not a lot of utopia in fantasy.
Not really,
It
no.
doesn't feel like a fantasy theme. It always
Yeah.
feels like a science fiction theme.
Well, do you even see it a lot in science fiction?
No, I always see the dystopia.
Yeah.
I always see the utopia that's been destroyed.
Or it's a fake utopia,
Fake utopia.
like the Giver, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, everything's great. Oh, wait, they're going to harvest your organs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see like many true utopia stuff anywhere. And that's my goal right now, is to write that.
The true utopia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
not like that nothing bad ever happens. It's just like when something bad happens, people actually react in a human proper way to it. So like in the story I'm writing, like the utopia exists, and then there's like a whole other side of the world, a universe where there's like a lot of not great stuff going on. And so I was like, because at first I was going to have them be totally isolationist and like they just do their own thing and then the world kind of rots. But I'm like, you know what? There's actually like, I'm going to have it in my story where they're actually more technologically advanced than the other side, because they're like obviously not fighting and wasting resources and all that kind of stuff. So they're actually going to be more advanced, and they kind of just send like anonymous humanitarian aid to this other, like to the majority of the galaxies over here, and kind of like just integrate themselves in society without becoming part of it, and kind of like help the people where they can, and form like little subgroups of people that like kind of break away from the culture and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, and then I guess since it's science fiction, it's still on topic, but yeah, I just was going through my notes today and I found one of my really cool notes where the idea is that everyone kind of has like a neural net, or like a neural link. And so that So then basically what happens is there's like these AI software things that kind of like exist on the cloud, but since everyone's tapped in like at different points, so like they get the benefits of being connected neurally to like bigger networks, right? But then at certain times these AIs will actually like take over people or like use their yeah, exactly. Or they'll like, draw like power from like, or like whatever. They'll draw what they need from people basically.
Like mind controlled by
Kind
the
of
AI.
Yeah, like it doesn't happen like super often.
Yeah.
But it like when it does, it's like basically people feel like all drained and like weakened and mentally fatigued and stuff. So they'll feel like these surges of like, compute going through like waves of the population when these like AIs like need to do something like crazy, And so I was like, for me, it's an interesting spiritual parallel where, basically people are like the programs, the AI programs and software is obviously like spiritual beings where they like, basically feed off of like large amounts of population to like accomplish things. And so then it's like people end up becoming like religious again in some sense where they like, because the AIs obviously outpace or have like more power, I guess, than people. And so they see them as like kind of the gods coming back in some sense. And so they're not even actually bummed when like the AIs feed off them. They see that as an experience with God. And so they're like, oh, like God touched me, like I know he did because I'm like physically drained and like he worked through me. And so they're like actually willingly giving their power to these like demon AI things.
Wow. That's crazy.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it's like they're actually happy to be connected to the system. They're not like, just like, I mean, they're obviously slaves, but they think they're like free, and they think they're, empowered basically because they're like connected to something higher.
I'm wondering, are there any AI movies where the AI is not the villain? I feel like
It's like a cautionary tale.
I feel like everybody tells tales about like they created the perfect AI that solved all of humanity's problems, and then it realized that humanity was the problem, and it started to kill the humans. So then the humans had to do some crazy, unpredictable thing in order to overcome the AI. It's like, what if there was one where it's like, no, the AI just fixed everyone's problems, and like there was some kind of evil in the world, but AI defeated it, and AI saved the people. And kept everyone's lives like perfect and happy.
Yeah.
Like this is the end.
It is. Yeah.
I don't think there are any stories like that.
Well,
like none.
Yeah, and that might just be like a pattern that's baked into like our, I don't want to say collective consciousness because I hate that phrase, but like it might just be baked into like a spiritual truth, that's like a bad news, but people are still gonna do it.
I think that losing control plays on people's fears and creates good drama and storytelling.
I could see that, yeah. And that's like what AI does is makes you lose control.
Yeah, you lose control because you give control to the AI. And
that's
then
true.
The AI controls things in your life. And that's not American.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of interesting ideas with technology in general making you lose control.
Yeah.
Where it's like in some sense you have more power than ever, but you do lose control. It's like when you start putting all your music on or have all your music on Spotify, you lose control of your music because what if Spotify goes down, or like having all your information stored on the internet. It's like you've externalized all this information. You don't remember half as like the memory of a modern human is trash compared to like the memory of somebody from the past.
Yeah.
So like the more technology you implement, the more you do weaken yourself in some sense, like as an individual, but your accomplishments can be greater.
Okay, I've got a question with sci-fi just in general as like as a topic of storytelling. Do you think that which do you think, like you kind of alluded to this earlier, but which do you think generates or bolsters the other? Do you think that sci-fi creates inventive ideas so that technology has a path and direction to go? Or do you think that as we advance in technology, it inspires people for sci-fi and then they're like, oh, I'd never thought of that. And then they get inventive with their storytelling. And the reason I ask that is because I feel like the idea of Star Wars, right? This was the classic science fiction of our generation. I just feel like that kind of science fiction story couldn't have been told like 1,000 years ago. I don't know if people could have invented the idea of like aliens and spacecraft and lightsabers and giant planet destroying space stations. And like, I don't know if people would have had that kind of technology creativity in their brain before technologies sort of got to a certain threshold that would inspire you to think of those things. You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if people would have thought of spaceships flying around before they thought of just planes flying around. You know, I mean, that's kind of my argument here.
Unless you look at some of those creepy hieroglyphics. Of
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
except for the alien hieroglyphics or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
But
just kidding.
you know, it's like I just wonder, you know, which one follows which,
Yeah.
science fiction or technology, I guess.
Yeah, I do think it's
don't know.
like I do think they inform each other for sure. The idea being that I don't know exactly what like the lag time is, but I think, you know, you put the idea forward first that's ahead of where you are, then people reach towards that, but by reaching towards that you're able to infer based off where you are further in the future.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like an inchworm, you know, where it's like,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like as technology goes up, you get more inspiration because you're thinking about technology, and it's like, ooh, what if we had this other, more advanced thing? Let me write a story around that idea, and then by reaching for that concept, you give technology like, oh, we could create that, and then they move forward, and now the level of
Yeah.
inspiration goes up even more.
yeah. So it's like a stepping pattern
Yeah.
where it's like, I think always doing that kind of. But yeah, so then that kind of leads me to a more, what is like trying to find a more broad maybe a more narrow definition by some extent, definition of science fiction, because, you know, is predicting a year out, is that science fiction? You know, does that make sense? Where it's like, if you're writing things for like, you know, planning out for a year ahead, it hasn't happened yet. It's like, is that science fiction? You know, and so like, it doesn't.
Yeah. Science fiction always feels like it needs to be like really far in the future. It's like it's the year 3000 and
Yeah.
Earth is about to die.
Yeah.
And so we all are going to a new planet we found.
Well,
in
and then the
another
other interesting
galaxy.
thing is like, is science fiction just about technology or is it about the future? You know, because like I think a lot of people
yeah.
just assume science fiction is only futuristic. It's just like means futuristic.
Right.
But next year is futuristic. But
Yeah.
people wouldn't say that's science fiction.
Right.
You know, that would just be like, oh, I'm just planning my year.
What if
It's like,
it was
no, you're writing science fiction.
Yeah, what if it was like about people in the past with advanced technology?
Like Star Wars.
You know? Star Wars. Yeah. Literally they're like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I guess this was in the past.
Well, that's why I've always, I mean, I think other people think this too, but I've always seen Star Wars as fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, they literally have like the Force.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not very scientific.
No, it's not.
You have to meditate to get it. What kind of Eastern crap is this?
Very mythological, very Buddhist or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Star Wars. It what did they used to call it? Like a space drama or something like that.
Space opera.
Space opera. There you go, space opera, right? Which is such an interesting term.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that could be more in the fantasy category for sure. But yeah, I think with a lot of science fiction, I do think of it as futuristic technology. You know, but what if it was technology in the past, or what if it was the future but without technology? You know, what if it was like we time traveled to the future and there's no more technology? We're all just sort of like Adam and Eve in the garden kind of thing.
And you'd be
on.
reading
Wasn't that
H.G. Wells'
Yes,
The Time Traveler.
Yeah, he goes in the future.
Yeah.
But then there's like some weird like cannibal Neanderthals or something going on.
Well, there's like the happy naked people like
Yeah.
running around the surface, but then at night Morlocks come out.
Yeah, and they kill people and eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're both, turns out to be like, they're both humans, but just
Yeah.
like evolved differently.
Yeah.
And they're like all the working class people that like devolved and like went underground and became cannibals. And then all like the rich or aristocrat people like, yeah, stayed on the surface and became like happy little hedonists.
Yeah.
Weird
Okay.
story, bro.
Yeah. It's like, whoa. I guess that's what he thinks of the people.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Tell me what you really think.
Tell us more about your ideas of socioeconomic divides. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I didn't know it was like
Cannibalizing the rich.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. But for me, I'm getting inspired more to bring science fiction closer to home, let's say, and like, because I want to take that same scientific or like science fiction ethos and bring it into the near future.
Okay.
Like, how cool is that? Like, if science fiction at its best is coming up with like technologies and solutions to like future scenarios, it's like by that merit, science fiction should be applicable to like our lives right now, you know, or like the idea of, you know, writing, like solving problems and like, you know, writing warnings in some sense. Cause I think a lot of science fiction is writing warnings and cautionary tales. But like, I think a lot of that can be done in a very near context instead of thousands of years out. Because I think a lot of people do write stuff where it's like you write thousands of years out to kind of buffer yourself, you know, and like provide yourself with good allegories and like metaphors. But it would be interesting to write like very, very near future, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
I could see it would be interesting to write a science fiction where you take all the problems of today and just like create sort of interesting technological
That's
solutions
exactly-
to
yeah.
it. Where it's like, oh, we created a strange weather machine that allowed rain
Exactly.
to pour on the
Thank you,
Sahara.
yeah.
And so over the course of the next 30 years, we
Yeah.
created a giant jungle
yeah,
in North
exactly.
Africa.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
We melted Antarctica.
it's so simple. All we had to do was let the planet get warmer. We've been trying to stop it for so long.
People were running out of fresh water, but then we just decided to melt all the glaciers.
Yeah.
So we would have drinking water for a long time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We desalinated the whole oceans and now there's just lakes everywhere.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
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 I don't think you should do that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So it's like, that is one thing where it's, you know, because if it is about inspiring people to like change and create, you know, technologies or change their ways, it's like, why not just bring it like closer to home and give people like actual good examples instead of like, I don't know, things thousands of years in the future. And so actually in one of my stories that actually happens where, well, it's the same universe, but basically like global warming does happen and it like turns out to be the best thing ever for the earth. Yeah. It's like all the carbon goes in the atmosphere. All the plants like start growing like at, you know, 5x their speed and like size. So it's like global hunger just gets like solved in a matter of years. Like since the earth is warmer, all the oceans start evaporating faster, which provides more fresh water in the atmosphere. And then like the Sahara does turn green. And it's like,
There you go, man.
Canada is like actually nice now.
Yeah.
And,
Perfect. And Russia.
Yeah, in Russia and like all this area in Siberia gets like unlocked and stuff. And so, yeah, it's like, yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, let's imagine whatever impending doom people are thinking of. And then you know, oh no, there was a giant asteroid that was going to hit Earth.
Yeah.
But wait, it has valuable minerals that we need. Let's harvest it instead of destroying it.
Okay, don't look up. That movie.
It was the best thing ever to have an asteroid hit Earth.
Yeah.
We made tons of money.
That's what we always needed, more money.
Lots of people died.
Yeah, we got to depopulate the earth and be rich.
Oh.
It's the elite's dream.
The elitist dream.
Yeah. That's why they all got their bunkers under the Montana mountains.
Right.
Yeah. I was talking with your dad the other day because we were talking about asteroids hitting the earth.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one in 2029 that's going to hit. So
Oh, yeah.
watch out. But I don't know. I think your mom and I were making comments of like, because he was like, trying to figure out how to survive, or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm like, dude, like, first off, like, what an easy way to like get out of here, like with that, pretty much you're gonna be like annihilated pretty much,
Yeah.
it's like, what a great get out of jail free card,
Yeah.
and then even if you do survive, you're gonna be like in this apocalyptic wasteland with a bunch of the other rich people that like people you hate that like survived in their bunkers,
That's
and
true.
sharing the world with them. It's like, do you really want to be
You
sharing
wanna-
the world with Bill Gates, who you already hate?
Yeah. Like, do you want to deal with the aftermath?
Yeah,
That's a good point.
exactly. Like, and it's like the only people that survive are all the people you hate. So it's like, like whatever, Biden or whoever's gonna be like fine.
Gotta go live in the road warrior post-apocalypse existence.
Yeah, it's like none of your average friends that don't have like some military grade bunker are gonna survive. So
Yeah.
it's like none of the people you actually like are gonna be around, and
Yeah.
and the world's gonna be a wasteland.
It's true.
Good luck.
Yeah. I know,
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's my reason for not building a bunker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
But if we all had a Jules Verne Nemo submarine, I'm sure we could just float around in the ocean and be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or even some of those caves in like Turkey and stuff, where they have like those. Have you seen those like caves that people lived in for a long time over there?
As long as the asteroid doesn't create massive earthquakes.
It's actually pretty safe underground for
Oh, you think
earthquakes.
so?
Oh,
Really?
yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's fascinating how some of that stuff works, but like a lot of seismic stuff, like when the like seismic activity is going through the ground, it actually works like water in a lot of cases.
Oh.
Where like if you have like even like a tsunami or whatever, like a lot of the energy's at the surface
Oh.
rather than like underneath the
If
water.
you're like deep underground,
Mm-hmm.
might be okay.
Yeah, like I mean,
So
take this with a grain of salt, but like Elon Musk's like the Boring Company, they're going to be like digging through a lot of LA and stuff.
Oh yeah.
He was saying like if there's an earthquake, the safest place to be is actually in a tunnel.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of the like seismic activity goes through the surface of the ground rather than like deeper down.
I would have thought if you go down to the tunnel, you're gonna get trapped down there. Like, don't go down there.
I mean, the exit might collapse
Yeah.
because that's like near the surface,
Yeah.
but the farther down you are, the better.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Huh. Yeah, I would not have thought about that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think people will be fine if they're deep down. But yeah, I mean, some of these cities, dude, like these underground cities, like they carved out a rock by hand. There's like
Yeah.
ventilation shafts, like just
It's like a work of art.
yeah,
crazy.
it's like a human anthill,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Write a science fiction story about that.
I could, yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be pretty interesting.
People hand carved caves in order to survive the
That is the idea. Like
asteroid apocalypse.
that is the idea. They're like some of them are near like Göbekli Tepe.
Right.
And so, like, the idea was that they, basically survived in these caves, came out, and then built like Göbekli Tepe or something, or like whatnot. And then I don't know why they've decided to fill it back in. That's still a mystery to me.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
Yeah, like there's a few speculative theories, but yeah, it's like you did all this work and then you just like filled it back in with rubble.
Yeah.
It's like super weird.
Maybe they knew that the catastrophe was coming.
Maybe.
So they filled it back in to preserve it and thought, oh, yeah, we'll come back to it afterwards. Then they died and they didn't.
That'd be kind of weird.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much fascinating ancient stuff, but that's a topic for another time.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Well, science fiction and the Psalms.
Time together.
Yeah, time together somehow.
How you gonna do it?
I have absolutely no idea.
Come on, you can do it.
You need to
This is
You
your,
need to
this
write
is your
a-
final.
a poetic biblical science fiction story.
There you go. There
You
you
know,
go.
if you read all those creation psalms, you'll find the science fiction in there.
Probably.
Yeah, nah, I wouldn't look for science or fiction in there.
You don't want to base your whole worldview off the science of the Psalms.
No,
Okay. Sounds like a new cult that
No.
would be started. Psalm science.
Psalm science. Oh my gosh, Psalm Scientology,
Okay.
Psalmology.
Cutting you off. You had your chance. All right. See you, everybody.